The future belongs to those who are prepared. Write it down, prepared. The future can belong to you, but you're going to have to prepare yourself mentally. You're going to have to prepare yourself physically. You're going to have to prepare yourself relationally and educationally and spiritually. Now, students, this is not fun, and especially just before lunch, but if you get what we're going to talk about on this page, it would have made this day worthwhile. Think about your future for just a few moments. Give yourself maybe the next 20 minutes before we go get a little toddy for the body and a little something, all right? Guess what? Let's talk about how the future could belong to me. To me. Number one, I must prepare myself mentally. I must prepare myself mentally. Okay? Now, that means there's some things I don't do and some things I do. Let's talk about how to get unplugged. Last night I got in late at the hotel. I got this huge grant proposal. I got people sending me material from all over the country. I've been on an airplane 3 hours. I spoke 6 times. I mean, I'm so far down getting that done. I get into the hotel. It's about 9:30, 10 o'clock. No internet service. Can't get it. And I tried 2 different cords. I call the front desk. I call the national hotline. I mean, I'm laying hands on it, you know. I'm wanting to cast the devil out of it. You know, I mean, I'm doing everything I can. Now, finally it came down to, they said, listen, what I want you to do is unplug and turn it off. I said, oh, great. I waited 20 minutes on the phone to hear that. He said, no, we got to get unplugged first. I want you to unplug it from the wall. I want you to unplug everything from your computer. And I want you to turn it off. And then we started over. So let's talk about what we should get unplugged in order that we can get rebooted. All right? And I'm not going to give you any preacher talk. I'm going to talk to you. When I say preacher talk, sometimes if somebody talks to you about alcohol, drugs, or sex, you expect the pastor, the youth pastor, to do a rain dance on that, don't you? I mean, be honest. You expect that. Every time you go to camp, you know you don't hear about the prodigal son. You know that, right? So let's talk for a moment. Do you know the Bible says, write this down if you would, be sober. Do you know what that means? There is a battle for my mind. Personalize this. There is a battle for my mind. There's a battle for my attitude. There's a battle for my thoughts. There's a battle for control of me. Do you ever wonder why, pretty young ladies? Look at me, young ladies, just for a minute. I always like to go pretty young ladies. You know why? Because the young ladies always go, shh, he's talking to me. And I am too. But anyway, pretty young lady, look at me just a moment. Do you ever wonder why? Have you ever heard the radio, the advertisements on the radio, or maybe you read about them in a newspaper if you're flipping through it? But all the night spots in Houston will say something like this. I mean, I can go to your weekend edition of the paper and probably find 10 examples of this. So-and-so club, ladies drink for free. Now, when you look at the population of Houston, ladies would be at least 55% population. Now, how are they going to make any money if ladies are going to drink for free? Well, it's real simple. As pretty as the ladies are in Houston, and guys find out they're going to be drinking, they're going to come in by bus, by helicopter, and by camel. You understand me? In other words, do you know why these night spots want ladies to drink for free? Because if the ladies are drinking, the place will be packed. Because here's a rule. Write it down. If I lose the battle for my mind, inevitably, I'll lose the battle for my body. And that's why somebody is always going to be trying to get you at a sorority party or some dance or somewhere you go, have a drink, smoke this, try this, because all of us will do something while drunk or high we never would do while straight or sober. Does that make sense? There is a battle for your mind. And by the way, pretty young ladies, you got to be very careful where you go. When I read about these young girls and they go off on these spring break trips, and that beautiful young girl disappears completely, and people say, oh, she was drunk or she was all over that guy. And I don't want to be disrespectful, and I wasn't there, I don't know what happened, but I'd like to just say, where were the guys that were on that trip? Were there not any young men of honor? Was there not anybody there that would care about that and not try to take advantage of that and would make sure that she wasn't going to be leaving with somebody else? I mean, where were the guys? Where are the men of honor? And you have to understand, pretty young ladies, you need to know when you go somewhere, it can be a Coke, it can be a water, it can be a tea, it can be Sprite. It's odorless, tasteless, colorless. These little pills called the date rape drug. They're called Rufinol. And the nickname are Roofies. And you know why they're called Roofies? Yeah, because they come from Rufinol. No, because you're going to be on your back looking up at the roof because of that drug. Now listen to me, guys. You ever find one of your buddies that does anything like that? You got permission to body slam them on the spot, because that is less than a punk. Now, pretty young ladies, listen to me. Guys, listen to me. This isn't a game. General Pershing, I want you guys to get this. One of the great heroes in America's history, one of the great military leaders in World War I, said for us to put alcohol in our body and our brain, it's like putting sand in the ball bearings of an engine. You know, the word intoxicated means toxic, poison. And alcohol poisoning is one of the leading causes of death on the planet. We also know that alcohol is a gateway drug. Alcohol is first base. I started drinking. And then I moved up to the hard stuff, and then smoke this, and then try this. And I want to I'm not trying to come across as somebody trying to run your life. I have to earn the right to even be able to speak truth in your life. But I'm just telling you straight up, guys, you care about your future? I'd make a decision right now, today, once and for all, about alcohol. And mom and dad may like a little toddy for the body, and, you know, you may grow up, my wife grew up in an Italian family, man, and they drank more wine than you could float a battleship. But when she got serious about the Lord, and she loved her parents, she loved her Italian heritage, she loved all that, but, you know, we just both made some decisions in our young life about what we were going to do, and that decision was taken off the table from now on. So it's not any pressure for me. Jay, do you want to drink? I don't go, oh, no, it's the devil's brew. You know, I don't go through all that. I go, no thanks, man. No thanks. You know? All right. Now, not only is there alcohol, but the mind and mood altering drugs. Now let's talk about some positive things you have to do for your brain. You ready? Let's be quick. Students, you got to start thinking about taking care of you. Do you know that you need to drink, not only for your body, but your brain, at least 8 glasses of water a day? And you athletes that get dehydrated, you probably done, and you got the humidity problem here we have in Orlando and in Florida, you probably need to drink maybe 12 to 15 glasses of water a day. Your brain, the majority of it, is made up of water. And of course, some of you, it's low tide. But no, sorry. All right, anyway. So, number 2, you need to take your Flintstone vitamins. In fact, guys, you may want to just make a rule. Every day, I'm going to put on clean underoos, and I'm going to take my Flintstone vitamins. You may want to write that down. This is just me trying to be helpful. All right? Clean underoos, and because you might be in an accident. No, sorry. But anyway, you need to take vitamins. Write down with the word vitamins. It means life. Life begins when we detect the brain wave. People say, oh, it's the heartbeat. Well, it's very seldom because of the mother's heartbeat being so strong that it's the baby's heartbeat that's first detected. Because oftentimes the mother's heartbeat masks the heartbeat of the baby. But brain waves can be detected quite young. When do they know somebody's dead? When do we say life is over? Not when the heart stops, when the brain waves stop. Take care of your brain. Now that's about the actual, by the way, it's a computer. You know that. You realize that you have the most powerful computer ever invented right here. Okay? And yet we spend so much attention on the ship that carries the cargo, you know, how we look. And we think very little about the cargo, our brain, and our heart, and our soul. So we worry so much about the ship and very little about the cargo. Does that make sense? Now let's talk about how you prepare yourself mentally as a student. By the way, guys, listen to me. I was horrible at this. Horrible at this. But do you realize that you will be at your mental peak if you can get 8-9 hours sleep a day? I always thought it was a weakness to be asleep. I always thought, man, nothing happens when you're asleep. But that's when your brain reboots itself. If you want to be mentally sharp, take care of yourself. You got to drink right. You got to eat right. You got to be careful what you put in your body. You got to take those minerals and vitamins. I'd start now at your young age. Now, how do you strengthen your brain? Your brain is a muscle. Please write down these couple of truths. Be a reader. The single greatest thing that will increase your vocabulary, the single greatest thing that allows your brain, both sides of your brain, to work and to function, the single greatest thing you can do to give your brain a workout, I'm going to give you the 4 best things. Number 1, read, 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 read. If you made a commitment to read 15 minutes a day, at the end of 1 year, you would have read 20 books. Be a reader. Read biographies. You love sports. Read about some of your great sports heroes. Read about some of the challenges facing sports. Read history. Read novels. Read adventure. Read romance. Read something. When everybody got all upset, Harry Potter, man, the devil, demons, witchcraft. Listen, when I saw kids reading books bigger than the phone book, I'm going, man. Be a reader. Number 2, learn to play a musical instrument. Learn to read music and be able to play a musical instrument. I thought it was the girliest thing in the world, guys. Forgive me, I'm talking as an old guy the way I was raised in the South, that I thought marching in the band or playing an instrument, that's not, guys played football, man, we don't knock somebody down. We don't hurt somebody. I may be third string, but we're going to go out there and hurt somebody. I'll tell you right now. Now look at me. The things I thought were cool when I was your age, I look at them now, and that's the goofiest thing I've ever heard in my life. Let me challenge you right now. Whatever grade you're in, you want to have a sharp brain. You want to work out your brain. Learn to read music and learn to play an instrument. Do you know learning, and by the way, if you already know how to play an instrument, learn another one. All right? Number 3, not only be a reader, learn to play music. Guess what else? And I don't mean, hey, man, you ought to see how many tunes I got on my iPod. Yeah, thank you, Holmes. That's good. All right. But number 3, learn to play chess. Number 4, learn to scuba dive or fly a plane. And number 5, you ready? Write it down. Take notes. Don't ever sit there like this and somebody's got to entertain you. Somebody's got to do the moonwalk. Somebody's got to come off the top turnbuckle. Somebody's got to, we want tables. I mean, you got to understand, you need to take notes and be motivated to read those notes and go over. Number two, let's talk about physically. Ladies and gentlemen, exercise is without question the single greatest activity you can do to help yourself be physically fit and mentally fit for the rest of your life. Now, teenagers, let me talk to you about something. Look at me. I've had 6 knee surgeries on my right knee. I have to have a knee replacement. I played 3 sports. I surfed. And then I gave my life to Christ. And I was told I'd never graduate high school. Some teachers saw me trying. They said, Jay, you keep trying like you're trying. We don't know how. We're going to make sure we're going to help you graduate. And they did. I graduated high school. It was like a miracle in the book of Acts, all right? Number 2, I wanted to go to college. I didn't ever worry about preparing myself mentally. I never read. I didn't know how to play an instrument. I didn't know how to play chess. I never thought about learning to fly a plane. I never thought about scuba diving. I never thought about learning another language. School was just a drag. I went through it. I did what I was supposed to do so I could stay eligible to play. That's where I saw I never had my head in the game. Now listen to me. Now I get saved, and I get all the filth and the poison out of my life, right? And I begin to get a dream, and I begin to fill my life with the Word of God. And the Spirit of God begins to work in my life. And now I'm starting to try. But guess what? Remember I said you pay for your tomorrow today? Remember I said that? What I do today determines my tomorrow. Well, because of my days that I wasted, when it was time for me to go to college, 13 colleges turned me down. 13 said no thank you. We had a little something called Vietnam. Ever heard of Vietnam? All the posters said, Uncle Sam wants you. Guess what? No, Jay, we got it covered. We got everybody we need. Say what? We got it covered, man. We love your word, man. Now, that didn't really bother me until I saw the movie Forrest Gump. See, I love girls. Girls go, oh, bless his heart. Guys are going, what a dummy. Girls are, oh, squirrel. Oh, sorry. No, all right. Look, there's sunflowers. All right, but anyway. 13 schools turned me down. Now look at me. I said that one time to a reporter, and she went, oh, man, that's really tough. I said, do you know that all 13 of those schools have invited me to come back to speak or invited me to come back and be an adjunct professor? And did you know 8 of those 13 schools today are part of our SLU family, and they're official sponsors of SLU? They support what I do, my program. They send me their students. They send me their interns. They want me to get them students to know about their school. All 13 schools that turned me down have invited me back, and 8 of them are now part of my SLU program. And so when I shared the rest of that, the reporter said, they all invited you to come back and speak? I said, yeah. She said, I bet it felt good to turn them down. I said, are you crazy? I went and spoke at every one of those places, and when I got through, I looked at them. I said, your mama, because I'm just that kind of guy, all right? So I want you to know and understand, and by the way, guys, please write this down. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Some of us haven't gotten off to a good start. It's not too late. Now, that's exciting. I ended up getting through 4 years of college in 2 years and 2 months. That's exciting. I got a master's degree in 2 years and about 3 months. That was exciting. I got a doctor's degree in about half the time it took everybody else. That was exciting. I got a couple other degrees. I wrote a bunch of books. But listen to me. I was going so hard in that direction, trying to mental and then speaking and preaching and traveling. I'd had all these 6 knee surgeries because of football and surfing and a motorcycle accident. And so I got very careless with working out. Now, I've recently, I'm ashamed to say, and I say I'm ashamed because to admit, but I've lost now 60 pounds, about 61 pounds. And that's embarrassing that I had to struggle with it to that point. I still have a Backstreet Boy or two to go, but I'm working on it, all right? Now, but listen to me very carefully. Please write this down, students. Listen to the old guy who's still incredibly cool. But anyway, have balance in your life. And if you would put yourself on a program that I'm going to read 15 or 20 minutes a day, and I'm going to spend time in the Word of God every day, and I'm going to work out at least 5 days a week. Now, some of you are playing sports, and you know, I played sports, and I never had a problem with my weight until I quit playing sports. And then just living on the road. So what I want you to know and understand, in fact, I'm going to ask you to write this down along this side of the page. Let me share with you the template for student leadership. Let me tell you why I want you to be a part of this journey. Let me tell you why I'm so blown away and grateful for the privilege of being at your school today. But this is what I believe, if you would do this, you will own your future. You ready? And they all go together. It'll make sense when I give them to you. Number one, I want you to have a Renaissance mind. I want you to have a Renaissance mind. Now, what does that mean? That means you're well-read. Yes, you love sports, but you also appreciate the arts. You know, I'm amazed that when we go to London, and a lot of the guys, they love going to Normandy, but they don't want to go to any of the plays. They don't want to see any plays, and they don't sometimes want to go to some of the museums, Rodin's sculpture gardens, or Monet's studios, or to the Louvre. Oh, yeah, man, that's where the Da Vinci Code. Let's go see where the guy was killed. Squirrel. No. But guess what? You know what the goal of this school is? That you would have a Renaissance mind. And here's what it means. Write this down, please. I started to say, write this down for me, because a lot of times I say that, so if I say it, just know, I do that a lot. Write that down for me, write that down for me. But I shouldn't say it, and I'm trying not to, because I got through speaking one time, and I was running real late, and I had to run catch an airplane. And a guy came in the parking lot, a young guy, Dr. J. And I said, man, and in my mind I'm going, now, man, if I blow him off, he may have a real problem or a need. But I knew if I stopped, I may not make my flight, right? So I stopped. I said, yeah, man, what is it? He said, here. I said, what? He said, I wrote all that stuff down for you. And he gave it to me, And I had prayer with him. Lord, please help him not have children. No, all right, so, all right. Oh. Sunflowers. No, all right, but anyway. Kittens. No, but look. Number one, have a Renaissance mind. Here's what it means. That you are able to perform in several, I'm a professional speaker. In several, he quickly added, in several arenas at the same time. In several arenas at the same time. In other words, I've got to know about sports. I've got to know about what's going on in the world. I've got to know about all the issues that students are going through. I need to know about the arts. I need to know about science. And the way to have a Renaissance mind, young man and young lady, so that you, no matter what the conversation is, no matter where you go in the world, you know to stand up when a lady walks in the room. You know, guys, you take your hat off when you walk into a room. You know that you can say, yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. And you know when somebody introduces himself, you shake their hand and you look them in the eye and you always introduce yourself. And all those little things that disqualify so many of us for job applications and internships. And so if you start reading, if you were to get passionate about life, instead of school being a drag and just a time when you get with your friends, and there's plenty of time for that, by the way, all right? But if you were to ever get a little passion and realize that, especially at a school like this, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up, and I'm not trying to blow anybody's dress up. I'm just telling you, you get more opportunities at a school like this to, are you ready, to have a Renaissance mind than probably anywhere else I'll ever go. Just based on the catalog and what I know. So listen to me. A Renaissance mind. Number 2, the heart of a patriot. Why do we take you to the Vietnam Memorial? Why do we do a Pentagon briefing? Why do I have vets speak to us? Why do we go to Arlington Cemetery? And by the way, you know, the last time we had about and I want to be careful here. I think probably, let's just to be safe, about 1,500 students, and we were at Arlington Cemetery, and we watched the honor guard. Guess what we found out? Because the honor guard's not allowed to speak or show any emotion. His job is to guard the tomb of the unknown soldier. We found out that young man was an SLU young man. And one of his goals when he went through the program was, I want to be an honor guard. And, man, it was just so powerful. Well, one of the reasons that we go to Arlington, and then we go to the beaches of Normandy, and we have Pentagon brief. I want you to have the heart of a patriot. I want you to love your country. Number 3, we want you to have the soul of a saint. We want you to know how to be still. We want you to know how to, put the headset down, get unplugged, turn the music off, turn your phone off, and be able to meditate, be able to pray, and that you have the soul of a saint. You know that out of the heart comes the issues of life. And then we want you to have the influence of a servant leader. A servant leader. Learn how to serve. And then, you ready? We want you to have the fitness of a gladiator. The fitness of a gladiator. So students, I looked up and I had to make a choice because I'm a big believer. I've got to live what I'm asking you to live. And again, I'm not proud of the fact that I've had to lose 60, and I still got, like I said, 2 back. I think Lance, but anyway, I got to lose 2 more Backstreet Boys. But guess what? I either had to remove that from the SLU matrix, or I had to live it. So even though my knee swells up like about this big, and by the way, one of the guys I want to introduce you to is called Bob Whelan. He's a double amputee Vietnam vet. Lost his, from about here down in a minefield, rescuing one of his fellow soldiers who stepped in the minefield. He was given up for dead. And this guy's now walked across America on his hands. He was the strength coach for the Green Bay Packers. He's pedaled across the United States 3 times on a hand-pedaled bicycle to raise money for vets. He completed the Ironman contest. He's the guy, when he finally got to shore, the wave, because he doesn't have legs, the waves just threw him up on the shore, and he rolled around. He looked up, there's 12 cameras in his face, and you know what Bob Whelan did? He went, "Shark! Shark!" I just thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, but Bob Whelan was training me to get ready for a marathon. A triathlon. So we're training and we're working out. And here's this maniac, this guy, Bob Whelan's got arms like this big, all right? This maniac, and we're working out 5:30 every morning. And he calls me one morning because I'm late getting to the Y, and he said, "Dude, bro, where we at? We got to work out, man. We got to do," and I'm going, "Man, dude, no coffee for you. Chill out." I said, "Bob, you don't understand. My knee is so swollen. I was up all night. It hurts so bad." He said, "Man, what's wrong?" I said, "Man, it's swollen. It looks like a basketball, on the color of a basketball." Now, I'm expecting a little sympathy. You know what I'm saying? 6 knee surgeries, swollen, the color of a basketball. He goes, "You got a knee?" "Dude, you got a knee? Does it hurt?" "Oh, man. I wish I had a knee that hurt." Is it a sharp pain or is it like a throb? Oh, tell me about it. Describe it to me. Oh, man, I said, well, Bob, also my hamstring. You got a hamstring? I said, I hate you. And I got in my car and I drug my old bum leg and there we went, So, and by the way, whenever he speaks at all our 201 events in D.C., I always introduce him as my half-brother. And because we're close. What? What's the matter with you? It's always fun to do that because all the girls go. And the guys go, oh, okay, man, that was all right. Yeah, all right. By the way, Bob Whelan, I said to him one time, why don't you get out of that chair and fight like a man? All right, now, and I don't know how he did it. He's like right about there. He jumps out of that chair onto me. And when he puts those arms that are about this big around you, man, it is all over, all right? So he gets me back, so you're 3 people away. Now, that doesn't mean, oh, well, you heard somebody speak, so therefore you know that guy, that's one guy. No. You have to have a lasting, meaningful relationship with those people. But I promise you, if you'll be known as somebody that cares about people and believes in people and invests in people, you'll be surprised how people will believe in you, care about you, and want to invest in you. I want you to put a star by relational. Tomorrow we're going to be in the auditorium, and we're going to try to duplicate what we do at the Shark Tank and the Whale Tank and with the dolphins. Now, we're not going to be at SeaWorld. We're going to be here, but we've tried real hard, and your staff's worked real hard with us, and we're going to try to duplicate all that by the environment. We're going to try to do some pretty cool things. I hope it's going to be as cool as I think it is. But here's what I want you to know. Listen to me. The reason I take people to the Whale Tank is so they'll learn you have to earn the trust of a whale, or you don't get in the water with that whale. Now, guess what? You better learn how, pretty young ladies, before we go to lunch, you better learn how to have meaningful, lasting relationships with people. With your teachers, with your family and extended family, and with your classmates. Not only your teammates, but be respectful of those you play against and compete against. Students, years ago, you see, I was invited to start speaking in high schools when I was 19. And by the time I was 21, I was speaking in schools all over the country. And I was in Dallas, Texas. And at that time, one of the most famous preachers in the world was a man named Dr. W.A. Criswell. And he was a legend, and he was a great leader and a great man. Dr. Criswell went to some of the public schools with me. He'd never been to a public school before. I mean, since, because he at that time was about 65, 68. So it had been a long time. School had changed since, obviously, he was a boy. Now, teenagers want to be one of the best lessons you ever learned before we go to lunch right here. Do you know that when we got through, Dr. Criswell just said, man, I'm going to cancel the rest of the day, and I want to spend time with you and talk to you about what all I've seen and felt. We walked into his office. Now, this is before text messaging and email. I walk into his office. His secretary gives him a stack of pink slips like this, those memo cards. Some of you will remember those, that while you were out cards. And he had a handful of people wanting to get to one of the most renowned pastors in the world, pastoring at that time one of the largest churches in the world. And so he walked in, and they gave him a handful like that. And she said, oh, by the way, his assistant did, so-and-so called, and he was a very famous person. And he was on the top. Trying to be respectful, I said, Dr. Criswell, do you need me to slip out so you can have a little privacy and talk to so-and-so? He said, no, Jay, don't worry about it. Come on in. Well, I'm sitting there the whole time thinking, man, so-and-so called. Hello? 5 minutes later, Dr. C, really, I don't mind if you need to call. He said, no, Jay, don't worry about it. 10 minutes later, I told you I was a little ADD, right? About 10 minutes later, I go, Dr. C, don't you think you should, I'm telling Dr. Chris, Don't you think you should call so? He said, Jay, what is wrong with you? I'm going to call him. He said, I already know what he wants. I said, well, man, Dr. Criswell, I didn't realize that. I thought maybe it was just a call and it was important. And he said, well, I don't know exactly what he wants, but he said, I got a pretty good idea. He said, Jay, let me explain something to you. I haven't talked to him, but here's what he's going to want. Now, hear this, teenagers. He's going to want me to stop everything I'm doing and help him push his wagon up the hill. Now, don't get me wrong. I've helped him push his wagon up the hill before. It's usually an important wagon. It's usually something for the Lord. And I've stopped before, and I've helped him. But, Jay, I've known him a long time. Do you know he's never asked me about my wagon? Do you know he's never offered to help me push my wagon up the hill? Now, students, look at me. I don't know if you've ever had a moment where the Lord taps you on the shoulder and goes, this is for you. But the Lord tapped me on the shoulder and said, Jay, listen to me. This isn't about that guy who evidently is a taker and not much of a giver. This is about you. I want you to be the guy to try to help people get their wagon up the hill. Because, Jay, when you need help getting your wagon up the hill, there'll be folks willing to help you. Now, teenagers, write this down under relationally. I want to be the guy or the lady who helps other people push their wagon up the hill. I want to be a giver, not a taker. Now, Zig Ziglar. And that's a funny sounding name, isn't it? Zig, Z-I-G, Ziglar, Z-I-G-L-A-R. I saw Zig Ziglar 2 weeks ago. And I read his book when I was 19. His book was entitled, See You at the Top. And you see, Diane and I, and that's been my childhood, my sweetheart from my teenage years, and we've been married 37 years. Diane and I made a decision that I would never charge to speak in the public schools. Now, when I first started, I hadn't even finished college. And I, had a pretty rough background. And I'd only spoken once or twice in schools. And so the first year or two I did it, it was just principals said, would you help us? We got a drug problem or an alcohol problem or this or that, a race problem or a gang problem, whatever. But after I graduated college and got a master's and had already spoken at that time 1,000 schools, then all of a sudden I started getting offered $100, $500, $1,000 to speak in schools. Do you know that the last time I checked with my credentials and haven't spoken to more schools than anybody in the world, the going rate's about $7,000 speaking in school. Now, Diane and we've spoken at just under, it's like 40 schools shy of 10,000. We never took a penny. When it was $100, when it was $1,000, now that it's $7,000. No, but anyway, we never took a penny. And let me tell you, now, first of all, I had a group of men and women around me that were on my board that supported what I did, and so that allowed me to be able to do that. So it wasn't just that, I was so wealthy I could do it by myself. But I didn't want the kids to think I was paid to be there. But you know the main reason Diane and I did that? And by the way, we look up sometimes and we think about all that money, and, boy, could we use it now, especially with grandkids and some of the medical challenges and all that Missy had. But you know what we found out? We made that decision, and I want to close before we go to lunch with this, that if I were to spend my time trying to help teenagers make their dreams come true, if I could somehow help just one kid not get in the drug scene, or one kid get back into school, or one kid to get out of that gang, or one young lady to really resolve in her heart. I know that guy likes me, and I know I feel strong for him, but you know what? I'm not that kind of young lady. I'm going to honor the Lord. I'm going to do the hard thing. I want to be a godly, virtuous young lady. So that was kind of what motivated me. So listen, when I talk to you about relationally, how you prepare yourself for the future, do you know why I get to go all the places I get to go and do all the things I get to do? Because I learned when I was very young, and I'm trying to teach it to you. Be a giver rather than a taker. And if you will help other people be successful, the Lord will allow you to be successful. If you'll care about other people will care about you. Now, you know, we've talked about spiritually, right? You know you got to prepare yourself spiritually. That's why you're here, in your walk with God. And you got to prepare yourself educationally. It belongs to those who are prepared mentally, physically, relationally, spiritually, and last of all, educationally. I'd like for you to write down the following quote, if you would. And I want you to personalize it. I will be the exact same person I am today 5 years from now, except for the places I go. I will be the exact same person I am today 5 years from now, except for the places I go, the people I meet, the books I read, and what I memorize. Please understand, part of our, since we can't have goals for you, but part of this leadership journey that I want to invite you to be a part of. And you must remember, leaders are not made in a day. They're made daily, but not in a day. One session on leadership, one day, one leadership conference, one book on leadership does not a leader make. Leaders are made daily, but they're not made in a day. And leadership is not an event. Leadership is a process. So therefore, the reason I try to have some of the nation and the world's most outstanding PhDs in the area of Christian worldview to speak to you and challenge our students at the various levels of SLU is I really do believe it's the people you meet. The reason I want you to be a part of a White House briefing and a Pentagon briefing and a Supreme Court briefing and a congressional briefing is because I believe it's the people you meet. The reason I will introduce you to some great patriots and heroes, it's the people you meet. The reason I want you to be a part of a process where there's thousands of highly motivated young men and young women is because it's the people you meet. And I do believe iron sharpens iron, and especially even among teenagers. So it doesn't mean you have to just be around Dr. So-and-so or all the muckety-mucks or the hoi polloi. It just means that by being with other sharp teenagers, you could be motivated and even made sharper. The scripture says iron sharpens iron. The reason I want you to meet members of the royal family and the reason I want you to meet members of the House of Lords and House of Commons, and like I said, Secretary General of NATO and some of the leading professors of Oxford Analytica, the #1 think tank in the world, and some of these experts as far as the great history, and then some of the leading art curators, is it's the people you meet. The reason I want you to be with Arab and Jewish students, it's the people you meet. Members of the Knesset, members of the King of Jordan or the Queen of Jordan, or members of the Jordanian parliament. It's the people you meet. So I believe if you were to go 3 or 4 of those places, and then it's the places you go. I mean, you go to your nation's capital, and I don't mean just a tour that we do sometimes, you know, when we're younger. We have those tours of our nation's capital, and those are exciting, and those are great first experiences. But I mean really to go behind the scenes and know your nation's history. And to go to London and Paris and Oxford and Normandy and Rome and Athens and Venice and Florence and Ephesus and Jerusalem. And I mean, it's the places you go. And let's say the average teenager does read one book cover to cover a year besides required reading. And let's say that you decided you were going to make a commitment when you got involved on this 4-year journey. And just imagine that if you were to read 15 minutes a day, at the end of that year, you would have read 20 books. 20 books. So it's not uncommon for our students, once they finish the program, to have read 80 to 100, 150. We had one young man read over 500 books. I mean, it was documented. 500 books. You say, yeah, man, what in the world? What a waste. Well, he's the youngest American student ever accepted at the London School of Economics. He was the youngest American student ever graduate with a degree from the #1 business school, finance school in the world, the London School of Economics. And one of the things I'm going to talk to you about educationally about, you've got to be quad literate and you've got to be fluent in a couple languages. And my recommendation, of course, Spanish is very crucial to our nation and so important. But I really challenge students to learn Mandarin and be fluent in Chinese. I mean, after all, there's 1 billion people. And so this young man on his master's degree, he's just 22, by the way, right now. He just finished 1 year in Beijing in a language immersion program and got a master's in international business. And now he's back at the London School of Economics in England, and he's getting a second master's, and that's a master's in international finance. So by the time he's 23, and he's made already 5 trips, and by the way, Walmart's asked him to come and spend 3 months at their expense in China because of his understanding of the language and his deep love for the culture. So what I'm just trying to say to you, students, let's just say you got motivated and you read 15 books a year, 10 books a year, and you're up for a scholarship. Do you know one of the questions you're always going to be asked for an internship, a scholarship, an entrance exam? Tell me what you're reading. What have you read? I read The Red Badge of Courage. I read Harry Potter. I read Gone with the Wind. I mean, now Gone with the Wind, that's like a lifetime commitment, all right? That's a good one. Then you got to read the sequel, right? You got to read the sequel to Gone with the Wind. But I want you to know and understand that if you were to be up for an interview and you would have read 40 books, 50 books, 70 books on leadership and on Christian worldview and on history and on great men and women of God and on some of the big issues of the day, and you would have been to all these places and you would have met all these people, then whenever somebody's considered for the job, the scholarship, or the internship, do you think that'll give you a real advantage? Do you? I want you to be honest. Think about it. The answer is, of course, yes. So the time for us just kind of hanging out, have fun, enjoy being a teenager, but get some purpose and some passion. So you need to be, if you want to really own your future, conquer the future, you need to be what is called quad literate. Please write that down under education. Quad literate. Q-U-A-D, 4. Quad literate. Number 1, you need to be fluent in English. And I'm talking to, well, Jay, you talking about somebody that's new to America? Are you talking about somebody that's maybe second gen? No. I'm talking about to my rednecks. I'm talking about to all the Texans. I'm talking to Vern, Bubba, and Thumper. I'm talking to everybody, all right? We don't know or speak English very well. If you're an athlete, I beg you, for the love of heaven, learn to talk before somebody sticks a microphone in your face. There's nothing more embarrassing that you hurt for somebody to see somebody that's this phenomenal athlete, great character, wonderful person, and yet, unfortunately, we're judged by the words that come out of my mouth. Do you understand the words coming out of my mouth? Well, no, really, we don't. So learn to speak correctly. Now, guys, I promise you, this is so boring. I mean, I don't want to get my English teachers upset with me, but sometimes English may not be the most exciting subject in the world. Now, this is just, I'm going out on a limb here, all right? But I want to be very straight with you. You're going to be judged the rest of your life on how well you speak, how well you can communicate, and how well you write. I'd take every English course I could take. I would master subject-verb agreement. I would master, in this day and age of texting and shorthand and all the gobbledygook speak that we do, I would learn how to write coherently, completely. Guys, you don't want to be walking around with your participles dangling in public. No, no, no. Okay, no dangling participles, all right? Learn to speak correctly, all right? Number one, you got to learn English. Number two, you've got to take, guys, I'd go out for drama. I'd be a tree. I would be able to stand on a stage, and so many young men say, well, you know, I'm shy, that's not me, I never do that, or I don't want to be an actor, that's kind of silly, that's not for me, I'm a ball player, listen to me. You need to learn how to overcome any fear of speaking in public. I promise you, take a drama class. I promise you, get a part, feel the pressure, learn how to memorize a line, learn how to be able to stand, learn how to communicate, learn how to have a presence, learn how to be somebody that's in a supporting role. I would take debate. I would take any course that helped me learn how to organize my thoughts and how to defend my position. So number one, be fluent in English. English, English, English. Now, by the world, do you know what is now the number one English-speaking country in the world? China. English mania. And I promise you, 25% of their total grade to graduate is their ability to speak English. The highest standard test in mainland China, the test that is the number one determination on what university and school they'll get into, 25% of their grade is English. So if I were you, I'd just keep hanging out and you know, barely be able to order fajita. You know, I mean, you are competing with the rest of the world, students. And I would learn another language, and I would learn my language well, learn to speak English fluently. And I wish you could hear the drills that the Chinese students do for hours, and the passion, and they'll shout it, they'll repeat it in unison, they'll sing it, and they will be judged 25% of their total grade, their future, on the ability to speak English. Number two, I'd be fluent in another language. We've talked about that. Spanish. By the way, you know, sign language now is an acceptable language to meet college requirements. But learn how to speak another language. Now, not only will it open doors for you in the day ahead, not only does it increase your brain capacity, but number three, it expands your understanding that we are part of a world here. So be fluent in English, be fluent in another language. Number three, and by the way, I'd really encourage you to think about learning Mandarin. Number three, I'd be fluent in computerese. I know you're digital natives. I know you live in that world. I know you have your iPhone, your iPod, you got your BlackBerry and Huckleberry. I'll be your Huckleberry. I mean, you know, we've got all the toys. We got our little Nano. We got our little Shuffle. We got the new smart tablet coming out. I just got back from the mothership. I was at Cupertino, some of you know where that is. That's the mothership for Apple. Meeting with Apple Education on this new virtual campus that we're launching, and thanks to your school, and you're our guinea pigs. And by the way, your response and your attentiveness and just what an incredible group you are, and how visionary your school is. But you're allowing us to capture some things today that are going to be put in 5 or 6 different languages, and it'll be shown 24 hours a day, and kids will earn high school credit and college credit. So I'm very, very grateful for being here today. I'm very grateful for your response and your attentiveness. But I want to just share with you, know that this world, you're a digital native. But it's not enough to have the toys. Know how it works. If you've got a Mac, you can go to the Apple store and you can take free Mac classes. Or you can sign up for one Mac class and be able to take 20 this year. And you can spend an hour of the time you're hanging out at the mall learning all those new apps, learning new skill sets, learning programming. I would learn everything about the digital world I could. I'd learn about being in front of the camera. I'd learn about being behind the camera. I'd learn about the virtual world. That is your world. Pretty soon, probably in another year, you'll be taking maybe half your classes off your phone. That's where we're headed. And you need to understand, you better know it inside and out, what makes it work, how it's programmed. Now, one last thing I want to share with you. You got to be careful of all the junk and all the filth. Young men, David, one of my favorite things to do in Israel at our 401 is I take our students, we walk the wall around the walled city of Jerusalem. And we go up near the Zion's Gate, which is not far from where the ruins of David's palace was. Now, it's not the same wall. The wall's been torn down and rebuilt several times. But we know where the foundational stones are. So near the Zion's Gate, near the area where King David's palace was, I love to take the students up on the wall. And I show them how you defend the city, and you're up on the wall. But then I have them turn around, look inside the city of Jerusalem, and see all the rooftops. And here was David one day when he was supposed to be in battle, but he wasn't. He was hanging out. And he went for a walk, and he saw a woman taking a bath on a rooftop. Now, I'm not saying it was a setup, and this girl evidently must have loved taking baths. Her name was Bathsheba. I mean, this girl had a reputation, all right? And I want you to know she's taking a bath on the rooftop at the same time of the day where the king normally went for a walk. Now, David folded like a cheap suit. Now, guys, look at me right here. I'm going to talk to you guys just a minute. And let's be real straight about one thing. David killed the lion, the bear, the giant. He defeated the Jebusites and took Jerusalem and made it his capital. He's considered one of the 5 or 6 greatest ancient leaders in history. He's considered one of the 5 or 6 greatest poets in history. He's considered one of the greatest kings and statesmen in history. And yet here was a man that what the Bible says was a man after God's own heart. And hear me, guys. If he could not look at a woman, take her clothes off, and look at her body without it creating a fire inside him that just about burned him up and just about burned the nation of Israel up. If a man that's a better man than probably 10 of us in this room put together, a man after God's own heart, he wrote the Psalms, the vast majority of them. This was this great, godly, powerful, brilliant man. You and I are clowns. We're less than punks, and I'm putting myself in that category. If I think, last night when I got in my hotel room, and I didn't want to watch SportsCenter because I didn't want to see how bad my Cowboys got crushed one more time. I didn't want to see that. So guess what? So you're flipping around, and I promise you, it's unbelievable. And I've run from that because I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm smart enough to know one thing. If David couldn't do it, I can't do it. Now, if you're one of those goofs that go, oh, it doesn't bother me, hello, then there's other problems. There's other issues we need to talk about and have prayer. So understand, young ladies, and listen to me very carefully. Young ladies, if I were you, I would be on my knees every night as a young lady. And I would pray, dear God, you with me, ladies? Dear Lord, help me, protect me. Please, Lord, help me not fall in love with a young man who has already got that poison in his system and is already showing signs of addiction. And if you had any idea the number of young men that are already clinically classified addicted to pornography, young ladies, it would scare you to death, because you do not want a guy like that as your husband. Because it's like any other drug. You got to have more and more and more and more and more. And pretty soon, you're not this beautiful young girl, his bride. And you see, sex is a wonderful gift from God. The Lord did real good. Some of you have been giving each other high fives. You just may want to give the Lord a high five, because the Lord did real good, all right? Sex is a wonderful, wonderful gift from God. You hear me? I didn't blink, did I? It is a gift from God. But now listen to me. Sex before marriage and sex outside of marriage cannot be blessed by Him. I'll bless that in the marriage bed. I'll curse that before the marriage bed or outside the marriage bed. 39 sexually transmitted diseases. 39. About 12 of them have no cure. The hundreds and thousands of young men and young women graduating high school every year that will never be able to enjoy sex the rest of their life because they couldn't wait till marriage. They said, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And because the guy had been with one other girl, and that girl had been with maybe two other guys, and one of those guys that had been with the girl who was with the guy who was now, with this girl, and one of the people that they were with had something, and now they've got one of these sexually transmitted diseases. There's no cure for it. Now, we're not talking about the kind that will kill you. We're not even talking about the 3 or 4 that could blind your children if you're pregnant, ladies, and you have this disease. We're talking about the physical pain, discomfort, and disease that keeps you from even being able to enjoy sex because it's painful and it's uncomfortable. Can you imagine graduating high school, or maybe your first or second year at college, maybe you've been on spring break or something, and you really, and something happens in all your heart, you wish it hadn't happened. We're not talking about pregnancy. We're not talking about abortion. We're just talking about you did something, you wish you hadn't done it. Man, I'm never going to do it. And then all of a sudden, you got that souvenir, that gift that just keeps on giving. So here's what you got to understand. You with me? Here's what you got to understand. Why does the Lord say wait till marriage? Now, let's be honest. I mean, surely the Lord knows this is that we've got these feelings and these desires. Do you think He would know that as Creator? I mean, this isn't too hard, is it? I think He's aware of our passions. He's aware of that. Number 2, I think the Lord also understands that everywhere you look, every magazine cover, almost every movie, walking through there's just so much emphasis that this is a sexually charged world. Would you agree with that? Why does He then say wait? Is He trying to make you geek of the week? No, you're doing that by yourself. No. Is He trying to cramp your style? Is He trying to rob you of something that is wonderful and fulfilling and means you're an adult, means you can do what you... No. Could it be that the Creator, who, by the way, is also the Savior, loves you But please write this down. He sees tomorrow the way we see yesterday. He can see the future. The Lord knows about the 39 sexually transmitted diseases. He knows about the ones for which there's no cure. He knows about AIDS. He knows about what it does to your soul and your reputation. And by the way, hey guys, let's talk to the guys a minute. When you read about a superstar, phenomenal, one of the greatest athletes in the history of the planet, obviously having an addiction and something out of control. I mean, we're talking about a guy married to a bikini model, Swedish bikini model, beautiful woman, 2 little babies, worth $1 billion. One of my favorite people. Met him, been with him. One of my favorite people on the planet. I'm not one of these guys trying to say something funny or cute. I'm brokenhearted. I mean, I could almost weep over what he's gone through. But I just want to show you about how addictive this stuff is. Here's a guy who has everything, who is the epitome of discipline. And he's got this beautiful wife. As one of the young caddies at Bay Hill, where I remember, said, man, he's got this smoking hot babe. What's he thinking about? He wasn't thinking. You know why? I don't know this. I'm not trying to be judgmental. It's just based on having been in the ministry 35 plus years. I think it's the story of a young guy, 14, 15, 16, who got addicted to pornography. And that burns out of control, and it costs you. Now, let me ask you something. If you're president of the United States, or you're a big shot preacher, or you're the most famous athlete in the world, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Don't say, that will never happen to me. That'll never be out of control in my life. That'll never consume me. That'll never affect me. I can look at that. It doesn't bother anything. I just want to tell you something. Write down the word clown if you think, or I ever think, that I can violate what the Scripture says and I can do something that history shows us will consume us. Does that make sense? And I don't want to do a rain dance on and on about these things, but I look at how bright you are, how sharp you are. You got your whole future ahead of you. And man, let's not get careless. Remember we talked about don't treat a message that should be marked urgent. Don't treat it as what? Routine. Let's not Pearl Harbor ourselves. So when I talk to you about learning the computer world, the digital world, the viral world, inside out, you got to be smart enough to know, avoid the double-edged sword and avoid the filth. You got to be fluent in another language. You got to be fluent in English. You got to be fluent in computerese. And last of all, you got to be fluent in the Word of God. Now, I'm not telling you that because you think a preacher's supposed to tell you that or because we're at a Christian school. I'm telling you because that is a fact, Jack. The Bible is the greatest leadership book ever written. The Bible is the greatest relationship book ever written. The Bible is the answer. Build your life. I love this phrase. Pitch your tent in the Word of God. Okay? Now, any questions about any of those? Any questions